Hey everyone, and welcome. Have you ever stopped to think about where the law actually draws the line between just being curious and committing a serious crime? We've all got secrets, right? Some are small, some are huge. But what happens when someone else decides they want to get their hands on them? Well, today we are pulling back the curtain on the legal framework that's built to protect our most private information.
So let's kick things off with the big question, the one that really gets to the core of everything we're talking about today. What is the real legal difference between being a little too nosy and actually breaking the law? In our everyday lives, that line can feel kind of blurry, but in the eyes of the law, that line is drawn with some very sharp, very deliberate strokes. And this explainer, it's all about finding that line.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into why the law even bothers protecting secrets in the first place. Then, we'll get into the specifics of three different crimes. We're talking stolen mail, the betrayal of trust, and high-stakes corporate secret heists. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by looking at how these laws act as the guardians of our privacy.
Okay, first things first. Why do we even have laws about secrets? Well, think about it. A society where no one's private thoughts, their plans, or their letters are safe, that's a society that just can't function. The law gets that. It recognizes that our ability to control who knows what about us isn't just a nice to have. It's absolutely essential.
And this right here, this is the crucial point. The laws we're about to explore, they aren't just some dusty, abstract rules in a book. They're shields. Each one is designed to protect a different part of our world, our personal letters, the trust we place in professionals, and the innovations that drive our economy. Put them all together, and they form a powerful defense for our private lives. All right, let's dive into our first case study and see how this all works in practice. We're starting with something really tangible, something physical and deeply personal, the act of stealing someone's mail. This is all covered under Article 290, and it's about discovering secrets by, well, seizing correspondence. So, in plain English, what does this actually mean? It means this law makes it a crime for any regular citizen to grab your letters or your papers with one specific goal in mind: to find out what's inside. It's seen as a direct attack on your personal line of communication, and believe me, the law takes that very seriously. Now, here's a really cool way to think about this in modern terms. Your physical mailbox. It's basically the original inbox. I mean, before email, before DMs, this was it. This was the main way you got sensitive information. So this law, you can think of it as the version 1.0 of an anti-hacking law designed to stop that physical data from being intercepted. So to really see how this works, we're going to break it down just like a lawyer would into three essential pieces: the act itself, the person who did it, and what they were thinking when they did it. First up, the act itself, or what lawyers call the actus reus. It's basically the what did you physically do part of the crime. And this law actually identifies two separate criminal acts. The first is simply seizing the papers. That's a crime. But the second and much more serious crime is taking them and then revealing what's inside to somebody else. And right here, we see a super important legal idea at play. The law understands that there are different levels of harm. Just seizing your mail, that violates your privacy. But revealing what's inside, that creates a much, much bigger wave of damage. It's like the difference between someone stealing your diary and someone photocopying every page and posting it all over your neighborhood. The law punishes that second act way more severely. Okay, next is the intent, or the mens rea. This is the guilty mind part. The law really cares about what you meant to do. To be found guilty of this specific crime, your one and only goal has to be to discover secrets. So if you accidentally grab your neighbor's mail from the community mailbox thinking it's yours, you haven't committed this crime because you didn't have that criminal intent. Now, this is interesting. The law actually carves out some key exceptions. Parents, guardians, and spouses are not covered. The legal thinking here is that these relationships come with a special duty of care. It's almost as if the law gives them admin access, you know? It's based on a level of trust and responsibility that just doesn't exist between strangers. So what's the bottom line? What are the consequences? Well, just seizing mail could land you in jail for 1 to 6 months, plus a fine. But if you also reveal the secrets inside, the penalty just skyrockets to a potential prison sentence of 6 months all the way up to 6 years. That massive jump tells you everything you need to know about how much more seriously the law takes spreading the secrets you've stolen. Okay, let's switch gears and move to our next scenario. We're shifting from a crime of theft by an outsider to a crime of betrayal by an insider. This is Article 291, and it deals with a situation where someone isn't stealing a secret. They were actually entrusted with one, and then they completely broke that trust. The absolute core of this law is what's known as abuse of office. It's aimed directly at people, managers, employees, personal assistants, who are given access to confidential information because it's a necessary part of their job. The crime happens when they take that privileged knowledge and just expose it, completely violating the professional duty they were supposed to uphold. So you see, the metaphor totally changes here. With stolen mail, the criminal was like a hacker breaking in from the outside. But here, the offender is a guardian. They were literally given the key to the vault. The crime isn't forcing the lock, it's willingly opening the door for the whole world to see. It is a fundamental, devastating breach of trust. So let's run this one through our same framework. What's the act? Who is the offender? And what was their intent when they did it? So who exactly holds these keys? The law is pretty specific. Managers, employees, servants. But you gotta think of this as a pretty broad category. Imagine a celebrity's personal assistant who knows their entire private travel schedule. If that assistant leaks the flight info to the press for a payday, causing a media mob at the airport, that is a perfect textbook example of violating Article 291. They used the special access their job gave them to reveal a private secret. And that brings us to the absolute heart of this whole offense. See, unlike the mail theft law, which is about a stranger violating your privacy, this crime hinges entirely on a pre-existing relationship of trust. The law is stepping in to protect the integrity of professional relationships, basically saying that these jobs can only function if confidentiality is a two-way street. And the harm caused by this kind of betrayal, it can be absolutely devastating, and it hits on so many levels. It could be direct financial damage, right? Like a manager leaking a company's confidential client list to a rival. It can be massive reputational damage, just like in our celebrity example. And, it can also cause profound emotional damage that just comes from such a deep personal and professional betrayal. The penalty for this breach of trust is a jail term of 1 to 6 months, plus a fine. The law is essentially putting a price tag on violating that professional trust and trying to quantify the damage this kind of betrayal can cause. Okay, buckle up, because we are about to escalate the stakes dramatically. We're moving away from personal and professional secrets and into the world of the corporate crown jewels, industrial secrets. This is Article 292, the law of the corporate secret heist. Now, this law is highly specialized. It's targeting employees in a very specific environment. We're talking manufacturing or industrial companies, and it has two absolutely critical parts. First, the secret has to be an industrial secret. Second, and this is so important, revealing it must cause actual harm, or what the law calls prejudice, to the company's owner. So what in the world is an industrial secret? Easy. Think of the secret recipe for Coca-Cola, or the source code for Google's search algorithm, or the blueprints for a revolutionary new jet engine. It's the golden goose of a company, that unique piece of intellectual property that gives it its edge. This law exists to stop an insider from handing a rival the plans to build the exact same goose, which would totally destroy the original's value. And the stakes we're talking about here are just astronomical. A single trade secret can be worth hundreds of millions, sometimes even billions of dollars. Its value is pure information. And when this much is on the line, revealing a secret isn't just a betrayal. It's basically a form of economic warfare. Our analysis is exactly the same here. The act is revealing those industrial secrets, the offender is an insider at the company, and the intent is knowing that the leak is going to cause some real, tangible harm. But the absolute key here, the thing that makes this crime different, is prejudice. This is the highest bar to clear out of all three laws we've talked about. A prosecutor can't just stand up and say, hey, a secret was revealed. No, they have to prove that the company was actually damaged by the leak. There has to be measurable harm. So what does this harm actually look like? Well, it could be a loss of competitive advantage, like suddenly a rival company launches a product with the exact same secret tech. It could be direct financial damage, like the company's stock price just tanks after a secret manufacturing flaw is revealed. Or it could be a total operational disruption. Imagine a disgruntled engineer at a car company takes the proprietary software code for their self-driving system and gives it to a competitor. That doesn't just cost money, it puts the company's entire future at risk. That is prejudice. And because the stakes are so incredibly high, the penalties are severe. We're talking jail time from 6 months to over 4 years, plus a hefty fine. A potential multi-year prison sentence. That shows you just how seriously the law takes protecting these incredibly valuable economic assets. Okay, so we've looked at three really distinct crimes, three totally different kinds of secrets. Now let's zoom back out and see how they all fit together to form this comprehensive legal shield for our private information. This chart just pulls it all together perfectly. You can see the clear progression, right? We start with personal secrets in our mail, then we move to professional secrets we learn on the job, and finally we get to those high-value industrial secrets. The violation itself evolves from simple theft to a breach of trust, and finally to full-blown economic espionage. And that really is the ultimate takeaway here. The legal system doesn't have a one-size-fits-all approach for protecting secrets. Instead, it has a whole toolkit of specialized shields. It uses a very precise instrument for our personal privacy, a different one for our professional relationships, and a really powerful weapon for economic secrets. The methods are different, but the fundamental goal is always identical: to defend that boundary between what's public and what is meant to stay private. But all of this brings us to one final and honestly critical question. These laws were written in an age of papers and letters. Today, our most valuable secrets, our photos, our messages, our business plans, they all live in the cloud. So the question this leaves us with is this: are these old shields strong enough for our new digital reality? Or do our laws need to move into the cloud right alongside our secrets? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining this explainer.